The space station of Eltarian 5 was like a broken jewel drifting through the dark, a rusted remnant of a better age, where smugglers, exiles, and forgotten wanderers mingled under flickering neon signs and the constant hum of malfunctioning vents. Marcus Vale, once a military engineer for Earth's outer colonies, now spent his days quietly fixing junked tech for barter, and his nights sipping bitter synth coffee in a corner booth at the last Ember Cap. He liked the quiet here, the way people minded their own business, the way the station never asked who you were or who you used to be. But everything changed the moment she walked in tall, graceful, not quite human. Her skin shimmered like starlight, her hair hung like strands of molten silver, and her eyes glowed with a strange blue fire, sharp and focused, as if searching through time itself. She moved through the crowd with silent certainty, her crystalline armor humming faintly as if it breathed. She stopped at his table and looked straight into his eyes, and before Marcus could ask who she was, she said it in a soft, calm voice that didn't match the chaos around them. "I finally found you, my ex-lover." The words landed like a dropped knife on a glass floor, slicing through the noise, through his mind, leaving only confusion. Marcus blinked, stunned, half expecting someone to laugh, but she didn't smile. He leaned back, scanning her face for some sign of a joke, but there was none, just sincerity and something deeper, something like longing. He told her he had no idea who she was, that she must be mistaken. But she shook her head slowly, like someone who had been waiting too long to be wrong. Her name, she said, was Elira Vin, an envoy of a civilization hidden beyond the known star lanes, and she wasn't mistaking him for someone she believed he was someone called Kyle Vin, a man who lived centuries ago, not on Earth, but in a different corner of the galaxy, in a different light. Marcus thought she was crazy, another station drifter high on memory dust or running from something. But there was something about her, something that pulled at the edge of his thoughts, like a half-remembered song from a dream. She placed a hand over his and whispered a word in a language he didn't know, and suddenly his mind was filled with images he couldn't explain of alien skies, of battles fought in orbit above dying stars, of holding her hand under twin moons. The visions lasted only seconds, but they left him shaking. He yanked his hand back, knocking over his drink, heart racing. She leaned in and told him these memories were real, that they belonged to him, that she had searched through time and distance to find him because their story wasn't finished. He didn't know whether to run or believe her. But something inside him, something quiet and deep, was whispering that maybe, just maybe, she wasn't wrong. And that terrified him more than anything. Marcus didn't sleep that night. The space station, always full of background noise, now felt like it was holding its breath, as if the shadows were listening. He kept replaying the woman's words in his head, Elira Vin. The name alone sounded like something from a fantasy novel, but her eyes told a different story, one that wasn't written in fiction. The memories she had triggered kept returning in fragments, flashes of stars unfamiliar to Terran charts, alien languages that he somehow understood in his dreams, and, the strangest of all, emotions he couldn't place, as if someone else's love had been stitched into his heart. He tried to ignore it, tried to remind himself that he was Marcus Vale, born in a Martian orbital dome, raised on Earth's crumbling colonies, served in the Terran fleet, and retired with scars and enough regret to last a lifetime. But when he looked into the mirror that morning, his face didn't feel like his own anymore. It felt borrowed, like a mask over something older. Elira found him again, waiting in the docking bay, standing next to a sleek black ship that pulsed with strange energy. She didn't speak at first. She only looked at him with calm patience, like someone waiting for a decision that had already been made. He asked her what she really wanted from him, still not sure if he believed anything she'd said, and she answered without hesitation. She wanted him to remember who he was, not because it would fix the past, but because the future depended on it. She told him there was a war coming, one bigger than anything humans had faced, a war seeded long ago by a race called the Zakor, and that only Kalar Vin knew how to stop it. That name again, Kalar. It sounded strange in his ears, but familiar in his bones. He laughed bitterly, asking why she thought he, a tired, broken human, could be the reincarnation of some alien hero. Her answer chilled him, because when she touched him, the ship recognized him. It had opened its systems to him, responded to his presence like it once had centuries ago. She offered him a choice to walk away and never see her again, or to follow her to a memory reconstruction vault, hidden on a moon cloaked in gravitational fog, where the truth could be revealed. Marcus didn't know why he agreed, but something inside urged him forward, not trust, not belief, but a kind of instinct, like his soul already knew the path. As the ship lifted off, he felt a strange calm, as if he was going somewhere he had already been. The journey through deep space was fast and quiet, the ship moving through folded dimensions like it was part of them. Alira remained silent most of the way, watching the stars, her expression unreadable. Marcus kept catching himself staring at her, not because of her alien beauty, but because she felt so familiar. Not in appearance, but in presence, like remembering the feeling of someone before the face. He asked her what Kalar had been like. She told him he had been stubborn, brilliant, reckless in battle, but gentle in peace. She said he had chosen peace over power, and that choice had cost him his life. When she spoke, her voice trembled not with sadness, but with unfinished love. The vault was buried beneath the ice crust of a forgotten moon, guarded by old machines that scanned Marcus and let them pass without question. Inside, Elira activated a crystalline console, and Marcus stepped into a chamber filled with shimmering light. She warned him that what he was about to experience wouldn't be just memories, it would be a merging of souls, a return of what was lost. As the chamber powered up, Marcus felt his mind pulled apart and rebuilt, as if thoughts that weren't his were pouring into his head. He saw a world with violet skies and silver oceans. He saw himself, or Kalar, standing before alien councils, commanding fleets with precision, laughing with Elira under starlit trees, bleeding in battles across the void. He felt the fear of losing her, the sorrow of betrayal, and finally, the moment of death, a silent explosion in the blackness of space as Kalar's ship was torn apart while trying to deliver a peace agreement that never arrived. The memories faded and Marcus fell to his knees, trembling. He was Marcus. He was Kalar. Both. And yet, neither fully. Alira helped him stand, eyes filled with tears she refused to shed. She told him this was only the beginning, that the Zakher knew he was alive now, and they would not let him reach his full memories. They feared him, not for what he was, but for what humanity had made him. Because unlike the ancient Kalar, Marcus was shaped by Earth's fire, by its chaos, its survival, and its unpredictable nature. He wasn't bound by the rules of dying empires or sacred oaths. He was free, and that made him dangerous. Marcus looked out from the vault's edge. Over the stars he now recognized not just as points of light, but as pieces of a life once lived. The future felt like it was closing in fast, and all the old paths were gone. But one thing was certain now. He couldn't go back to his quiet life. Not anymore. Something bigger than him, bigger than Earth, was waking. And it had his name written in stars. The silence of space didn't last long. Not after Marcus's memories stirred. Not after the ancient systems deep within the vault recognized him and pulsed his return through forgotten frequencies. Somewhere in the vast dark, a signal lit up, traveling faster than light, carrying a message that Marcus Vale once Kalar Vin was alive. And it did not go unnoticed. The Zakher Dominion, a brutal force that had waited quietly in the shadows of dying galaxies, felt the disturbance like a tremor in their bones. They remembered Kalar, the one who nearly ended their grip on the spiral sectors, the one who vanished before finishing the fight. They had feared his return for centuries. Now, the impossible had happened. And so, they sent the hunters. On a distant moon made of red stone and frozen gas, a black-winged assassin called Threxan awoke from stasis. He was old, maybe not in years, but in violence. He had fought Kalar before, barely survived, and now he smiled at the thought of revenge. He wasn't the only one. Across hidden relay stations, the Zakher reactivated their sleeper agents, embedded in neutral systems, and turned their eyes toward Eltarian 5, where Marcus had last been seen. Meanwhile, Marcus sat in the pilot's seat of Alira's ship, his hands gripping the controls even. Though he wasn't flying, something inside him had changed. He felt more alert, more aware, like his body was catching up to his memories. Every time he closed his eyes, flashes of his former life returned, not just the grand parts, like battles and councils, but the quiet moments too, repairing weapons, reading ancient texts, tracing Alira's hand with his fingers. He tried to push the images away, but they clung to him like breath in winter. Alira watched him closely, but said little. She knew this stage, this in-between place where the past and present collided, where doubt was louder than truth. They were heading to a hidden colony orbiting a gas giant, a place filled with traitors, mercenaries, and those who had chosen to live outside any empire's laws. Alira believed there was someone there, an old ally who could help Marcus unlock the last of his mind before the Zakor closed in. But they were already too late. As the ship entered the upper atmosphere, warning lights flared red. A message appeared on the console, written in a harsh, alien script, RUN. THEYFOUNDYU. The sky lit up with explosions as a Zakor strike team broke from the clouds in sleek, insect-shaped fighters. Without thinking, Marcus took the controls. His hands moved with ease, not from training but from memory. He flew the ship between fire trails and sonic booms, diving into a narrow canyon of floating rock and debris. Alira was silent, watching him, her belief now turning into something more, certainty. He was Kalar no longer just in name, but in instinct. The ship twisted and turned, barely dodging laser fire, until Marcus sent it diving straight into a storm tunnel. The enemy hesitated to follow. It bought them time. They landed in a scrapyard colony built into the side of a metallic cliff, where everything smelled like oil, fire, and desperation. As they stepped out, eyes followed them. Some curious, some suspicious. But one man, an old Exarelian with a mechanical arm and a tattoo of the prism mantle on his neck, stepped forward and smiled. "Took you long enough," he said. His name was Vauern, a former commander who had fought beside Kalar. He looked at Marcus, not with awe, but with relief. "You don't know who you are yet," Vauern said, "but you will." He led them deep into the colony's heart, through tunnels glowing with bioluminescent light. There, hidden beneath layers of metal and shielding, was an ancient relic, one of the last convergence cores used to complete memory transfers during the Exarelian Age. It was risky, Alira warned, because the human brain was not designed to hold two full lives. But Marcus didn't hesitate. He was tired of fragments. He needed to know the whole truth. As the machine wrapped him in light, something inside him shattered, then rebuilt itself in a way that made everything clear. He remembered not just Kalar's battles and love, but his purpose. Kalar had discovered something the Zakor wanted to keep buried, a truth about the origins of intelligent life, a map to an ancient power source buried in the galactic core, one that could reshape reality itself. The Zakor didn't fear Kalar because he was strong. They feared him because he knew where to go and what to unlock. And now, Marcus did too. But the awakening came at a cost. The Zakor were closing in. An explosion rocked the colony as Threxan arrived, cutting through walls like paper. Marcus, now fully aware of both lives, didn't run. He fought. Using scavenged weapons, ancient knowledge, and the unpredictable thinking of a human mind, he led the colony's defenders in a desperate escape. He fought Threxan hand to hand, steel clashing against black blades, and for a moment, it felt like Kalar was fighting his old enemy once more. But it was Marcus's rage, raw and human, that ended the battle. Threxan fell, not from technique, but from the ferocity of a man who had everything taken from him in 2 lifetimes. As they escaped into orbit aboard a smuggler's ship, Alira touched Marcus's arm and looked at him with new eyes. "You're more than Kalar now," she whispered. "You're something they can't predict." And Marcus, staring into the stars ahead, finally understood. He was not here to finish Kalar's story. He was here to rewrite it. And humanity, unplanned, wild, and underestimated, was about to make its mark on the galaxy in ways no empire had ever imagined. Space stretched endlessly in every direction, but Marcus no longer felt lost in it. After the battle on the outlaw colony, after defeating Threxan and unlocking the rest of his memories, he was no longer just Marcus Vale. He wasn't only Kalar Vin either. He had become something new, someone stronger, more aware, more dangerous. In his mind now lived two lives, perfectly balanced, one full of human grit, scars, and wild instinct, and the other shaped by alien discipline, strategy, and experience that spanned the stars. Alira noticed the change in him first. The way he stood, the way he spoke, the sharpness in his gaze, it was no longer just survival. It was leadership. He wasn't running anymore. He was preparing. They couldn't go back to Altarian 5 or the colony they had been burned, marked by Zakor forces. But Marcus knew what he needed to do next. The final piece of his old life had returned during the convergence. He remembered the Prism Mantle, a powerful ancient device built to stop weapons of mass destruction by manipulating energy on a planetary scale. It had been lost during the last war, hidden by Kalar himself to keep it out of enemy hands. But now that the Zakor were rising again, Marcus had to find it because the galaxy had changed, and this time they would not win by force alone. With Alira at his side, he sent a signal encrypted with an ancient Exarelian code into the void, calling out to former allies, exiles, rogue captains, and even human smugglers. The call was simple. Kalar Vin has returned. A reckoning is coming. Choose your side. Within days, ships began to arrive, small at first, damaged, patched together, piloted by people who had nothing left to lose but still answered the call. Among them were humans, tough and clever, used to scraping by with little. They brought ideas, daring tactics, and chaos, things the orderly Exarelian mind had always avoided. Marcus saw it clearly. This was why the Zakor feared him now. Not because of what he remembered, but because he had changed. He had become part of a species that thought differently, moved faster, broke patterns. Humanity was unpredictable, and in war, that made them unstoppable. The fleet grew, hidden in a forgotten nebula near the collapsed gates of the Murad sector. There, Marcus trained both Exarelian warriors and human rebels side by side. He taught them how to fight in silence, how to control fear, how to outthink the enemy instead of just outshoot them. And they taught him too. They showed him how to be flexible, how to adapt in chaos, how to smile in the middle of a crisis. In time, they became a force unlike any the galaxy had seen, a blend of old and new, of order and instinct. Then came the message. The Zakor had discovered the location of the Prism Mantle. They were sending a fleet to recover it from a dead world near a collapsing black star called Wraith's Grave. If they reached it first, everything would be lost. Marcus didn't hesitate. He led his fleet into the heart of the dying system, through radiation storms and asteroid fields, navigating paths only Kalar could know. As they reached orbit above the dead planet, they saw the Zakor ships already descending, shadowy and monstrous, shaped like claws and armor. It was a trap, but Marcus didn't flinch. He had a plan. Instead of attacking directly, he sent decoy drones into the enemy fleet and landed behind a ridge on the planet's far side, leading a strike team himself. Alira begged him not to go, but he simply looked at her and said, "This time, I finish what I started." Beneath the planet's crust, hidden in a chamber untouched by light for centuries, they found the Prism Mantle. It looked like a floating heart made of glass and stars, pulsing with energy. But as Marcus reached out to activate it, the chamber shook. Threxan's master had arrived. Commander Vrax, the Zakor war leader, descended through the roof like a beast, armored in living steel, voice like thunder. He mocked Marcus, calling him a shadow of the real Kalar, a broken thing pretending to be. Ho. Marcus didn't respond with words. He fought. The battle was brutal, Vrax's power nearly unmatched, but Marcus used both memory and instinct, ancient training and Terran reflexes, to keep up. As they clashed, Alira activated the Prism Mantle, feeding it power from her own energy core, something only bonded Exarelians could do. The device shimmered to life, wrapping the chamber in pure white light. Marcus, bleeding and bruised, delivered the final blow to Vrax, not with strength, but by tricking him into stepping into the energy beam, something only a human would dare try. As Vrax disintegrated, the Prism Mantle sent a wave of force through the planet, disabling the Zakor ships in orbit. Above them, Marcus's fleet moved in, overwhelming the enemy with speed and precision. The battle was won, but more than that, something had changed. Marcus stood before his people, the prism mantle floating behind him, and they knelt, not because of Kalar, but because of who he had become. He gave them no speech, only a simple promise. We end this war not to restore the past, but to build a future none of them expect. Alira took his hand, no longer calling him just Kalar or Marcus, but something more, the bridge between stars. And across the galaxy, other empires took notice. Humanity was not just a newcomer anymore. It had rewritten the rules. It had returned the general. And now, nothing would ever be the same again. The galaxy watched in silence as the battle-torn ships of Marcus Vale's fleet emerged from the dying system of Wraith's grave, carrying with them a victory no one had thought possible. Word traveled faster than missiles. The Prism Mantle was active again. The Zakor commander was dead, and Kalar Vin, reborn in a human body, had returned not as a relic of the past, but as a storm shaping the future. But Marcus knew the war was far from over. The Zakor Dominion had ruled from the shadows for generations, controlling through fear, silence, and calculated extermination. Now that fear had been broken, now that hope had returned to 100 fractured worlds, they would strike back harder than ever. Still, Marcus was not afraid. He had seen what humanity could do when cornered. They didn't crumble. They didn't wait. They adapted, evolved, and fought like fire. And that fire had now reached the stars. Alira stood beside him on the command deck, watching the stars with quiet determination. She had always believed Kalar would return, but what she hadn't expected, what no one had, was that his rebirth through Marcus would bring something greater. The strength of Kalar's mind mixed with the chaos of human instinct had created something new, something wild and untamed, something the Zakor couldn't predict. In old wars, armies followed orders. But this was not an old war anymore. This was an uprising. In the weeks that followed, Marcus and his allies began liberating systems one by one, not with fleets of overwhelming size, but with tactics that defied logic. Human engineers reprogrammed ancient Exarelian ships with code hacked together from scrap tech. Human smugglers ran supplies through collapsing wormholes that AI pilots wouldn't dare enter. Terran guerrilla teams fought in abandoned star stations, rigging gravity to shift mid-battle, turning every corridor into a trap. Even Alira, once a calm and composed warrior scholar, found herself laughing during a skirmish when a group of Earthborn Marines painted their dropships with comic faces and charged the enemy, blaring music from a lost century. Something had changed in the galaxy, not just in battle, but in belief. The idea of Kalar Vin's return was powerful, but what truly lit the fires of rebellion was the idea that humanity, a young, overlooked species from a blue world on the edge of a forgotten spiral, had stepped into the center of galactic fate and refused to play by the rules. On the eve of their final campaign, Marcus brought his closest allies together: Alira, Varen, several human commanders, and Exarelian strategists, once exiled for supporting peace. They stood around a projection of the Zakor core world, a planet-sized fortress shielded by quantum storms, gravity walls, and fleets beyond counting. The old Kalar would have called it suicide. But Marcus wasn't Kalar anymore. He said only this: they built that place thinking no one would be mad enough to come for them. That's their mistake. And so the plan was set, built not on brute strength, but on unpredictability. While the main fleet faked an assault from one direction, a small strike team, including Marcus and Alira, would drop onto the planet using stolen Zakor transport pods. Disguised, silent, unnoticed. Not to destroy the fortress. Not to take the throne. But to do something far more dangerous. Broadcast the truth. Deep in the enemy world's archives was a vault containing records the Zakor had hidden for centuries, proof that they had engineered several species' downfalls, manipulated the rise and fall of civilizations, even caused the ancient war that had killed Kalar. Marcus's plan was to get in, rip open those records, and send them across every communication grid in the galaxy. Truth was the one thing the Zakor couldn't fight. It would spread like wildfire, faster than any ship. And it did. The strike was chaos, of course explosions in all directions, fire in the sky, and close-quarter combat in zero-gravity halls. But Marcus moved like he had done it all before. Alira covered him, faster and fiercer than she'd ever been. Together, they reached the vault, tore down the firewalls, and released the data. It spread through every corner of space. On refugee ships and warships, on colonies and stations, beings of all kinds saw the truth. The enemy was not just brutal, but a coward hiding behind lies. In that moment, 100 rebellions ignited. Zakor forces began to collapse, not just from battle, but from within, as soldiers questioned orders, allies turned away, and entire systems declared independence. The galaxy didn't just reject the Zakor, it turned against the very idea of silent obedience. The war ended not with a final battle, but with a wave of awakening. Marcus stood in the ruins of the Zakor command chamber, breathing hard, blood on his hands, but alive. Alira touched his shoulder and whispered, "You did it. You brought them down." But Marcus shook his head. "No, we did it. Humanity. Cerealians. All of us who decided we wouldn't be controlled anymore." He looked up at the stars, battered but burning bright. For the first time, he wasn't thinking about the past or even the war. He was thinking about what came next. Rebuilding. Trust. Peace not as something enforced, but chosen. The galaxy had been ruled by fear long enough. Now, it would be ruled by those who remembered what it meant to fight for something bigger than themselves. Alira leaned in close and smiled. "You know," she said, "when I first found you, I wasn't sure it was really you." Marcus chuckled softly. "I wasn't sure either." She tilted her head. "So who are you now?" He looked at her for a long moment, and then answered with a quiet certainty, "I'm human." That's enough. And with that, the stars around them no longer looked like distant lights or scars of old wars. They looked like home, a place where something new could finally begin.